Their program nearly over. The student teachers settled in and waited for the start of their last class. All in eager anticipation, careers set to begin, yet still amazed at just how quick the year had passed. The work was finished, and so they figured this would be the time and place to say goodbye and on the year to reminisce. But to their great surprise, they found this wouldn't be the case. The prof said, "I've been waiting for the chance to ask you this." Was this a joke? No, she was serious, and there would be no chit-chat. So they sat up straighter and gave to her their full attention, thinking, what on earth could be so all important that she'd waited right until the very end to mention. Without a word, the lights she turned off, the window blinds she closed, and then went and softly shut the door so tight. And in that silent, unlit space, the question then she posed, tell me, please, when does darkness become light? It was as if the clock had stopped. Nobody made a sound. All sat waiting, thinking, I don't want to be the one to answer this. But time did pass, and the realization slowly came around. Someone would have at least to offer up a gift. Now, quite a few of them engaged in a game of second guessing, thinking that to find the answer would not be all that hard. And on this last day, perhaps she planned one final, simple lesson. Yet the quiet stillness of the room had caught them all off guard. A first attempt was offered up. Wait, I think I know. It's when the words within our books then can be seen. So truth and knowledge can finally on our students be bestowed, and best of all, new insights and subtleties be gleaned. She shook her head, no, then at what she'd heard, saying, who says reading is a thing they'd even want to do? So many find their truth and live without the printed word. And aren't books best when guided by insight and wisdom too? Some were now perplexed, but then there came another try. It's when the class can see the notes and such I put up on the board and pass out gems of knowledge, their consideration to apply. So precious facts to their growing memories then can all be stored. But she shook her head again, retorting, it's not at all just about you. And you should never equate the act of teaching with that of telling. You've got to guide, help, and demonstrate. Yes, all of that is true. But it's what your students can perform that should be the most compelling. One student, braver than the rest, offered up one last response. It's when they can see my classroom and all the wonders that it holds. And my students in their courses can then find themselves ensconced and feel the magic of the learning that inside there unfolds. But she shook her head again and said, no, that's still not just quite it. Each of your classes are important, but they're not the only one. Our subjects are mere elements of a much larger kit. It's more than just your stuff that counts, considering the long run. And so nothing was said until at length, once more the prof resumed. You were wondering what was wrong with what you said? Frankly, the answer is nothing much. They were as clever as you'd assumed. It's just your words did not quite jive with what was in my head. The need for guidance and compassion were far from in your sights. And then you put yourselves out front when it's students who matter most. And you were fixated on what divides and not on what unites. It's as if the differences were what had you all engrossed. And while she spoke, the student teachers became increasingly aware of how their eyes had become accustomed to the light so low. And looking round, a simple truth began to become clear. And through it all, a bunch of smiles did glow. And in the ever rising light, her voice continued, "You'd best bear in mind, it's not just about how to earn a living. School is about learning how to build a life that's good, and for instilling in our young folk all the joy that comes from giving. And so it's best to recognize those gathered all around, share and walk much of the path that lies in front of you, and like you, endeavor to pursue a life that's sound, while to themselves always remaining true. And when you are able to discern the commonalities and let them be the guide to your insight, then recognize that the school unites us all in family. That is when the darkness becomes light."